You hit send on a big coding job, the bill lands, and suddenly Kimi K3 costs you real money, while Ollama ran the same thing for free on your laptop. Kimi K3 is a frontier cloud model. Ollama and LM Studio run models locally on your own hardware. And the decision comes down to this: peak intelligence or total privacy and zero cost. Alright, test 1 is cost, and the objection I hear all the time is that Kimi K3's API pricing looks reasonable until you actually start sending tokens at scale. At $3 per million input tokens, $15 per million output, a heavy coding session racks up fast, and if you're not hitting that cash, you feel it immediately. I went through the official pricing and here's what you're actually looking at. Ollama and LM Studio are literally $0 if you run locally, while Kimi K3 charges $3 per million input tokens on a cache miss but drops to 0.30 on a cache hit. And Moonshot claims over 90% cache hit rates on coding workloads, which, if true, makes it way more affordable than the sticker price suggests. Ollama takes cost, and it's not close, because $0 local beats any per token rate when you've got the hardware to run it. That puts Ollama on the board first, and the score reads Kimi K3 0, Ollama 1, LM Studio 0. I know that cost gap because I've burned through API credits on a Tuesday afternoon and had to explain it to myself the hard way. Drop a comment if surprise token bills have hit you too. Test 2 is coding benchmark performance, and the number that got my attention right away is 93.4% on SWE Bench verified, independently confirmed by Val's A, which means real bug fixing on real repos, not a synthetic toy problem. That's the kind of score that changes whether you trust a model with production code. I ran the numbers twice because Kimi K3 hits 88.3% on Terminal Bench 2.1 and is ranked number 1 on Program Bench, while Ollama and LM Studio have no benchmark scores of their own since they're just the runtime for whatever model you load, though community reports do flag that Kimi K3 stumbles more on complex, trap-designed, multi-step tasks. Kimi K3 takes coding performance and it's not even a contest. Because Ollama and LM Studio don't have scores here, they inherit whatever model you drop in. That ties it up at Kimi K3 1, Ollama 1, LM Studio 0. Test 3 is speed, and the assumption I keep seeing in forums is that cloud models are always faster than local ones, so why bother running anything locally? One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. That's worth stress testing because the gap between the slowest and fastest configurations on Kimi K3 alone is genuinely wild, and your local hardware might surprise you. Look at the actual numbers. Kimi K3's official Moonshot API clocks around 32 tokens per second per artificial analysis, but Modal's optimized stack hits 460 tokens per second, which is a 14x speedup on the same model, while Ollama and LM Studio on consumer hardware land somewhere between 44 and 130 tokens per second, depending entirely on your GPU. Kimi K3 takes speed on the strength of that optimized stack ceiling, though I didn't expect the official API to sit at just 32 tokens per second, which is actually slower than a decent consumer GPU running Ollama locally. Score goes to Kimi K3 2, Ollama 1, LM Studio 0. Okay, so Kimi K3 is ahead right now, but the context window and deployment tests are still coming, and those two dimensions are exactly where the costs and privacy trade-offs get real. If you're building something that needs to stay offline or chew through a massive codebase in one shot, the next results could completely change your pick. Test 4 is context and output limits, and the failure mode here is real. You paste in a large codebase, your local tool hits its context ceiling, and it just starts forgetting the earlier files, which means your refactor produces bugs because the model literally can't see the code it's supposed to stay consistent with. I went through the official docs and the gap is pretty wild. Kimi K3 gives you a full 1M token context window with 128K output by default, flat pricing across the whole window, and automatic prefix caching for prompts over 256 tokens, while Ollama defaults to just 4K context unless you have 48 GB of VRAM, and LM Studio is similarly bounded by your system RAM. Kimi K3 wins context by a full order of magnitude, because 1M tokens versus a 4K default puts you in a completely different class of task you can even attempt. That's Kimi K3 3, Ollama 1, LM Studio 0. Test 5 is deployment and modality, and the scenario that bites people is this. Your client's contract says no data leaves their network, or you're on a plane with no internet, and suddenly a cloud-only tool is completely useless to you no matter how smart it is. Here's what the data actually shows. Ollama runs fully offline on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux with NVIDIA, AMD, and Apple Silicon support. Plus it has over 40,000 community integrations and thousands of model tags. While Kimi K3's open weights technically exist, but need 8 Job 300 GPUs to run in production, which is a data center, not your desk. Ollama takes deployment because offline capability and 40,000 integrations on consumer hardware is a completely different value proposition than a cloud API with open weights that require data center GPUs to self-host. Final score, Kimi K3 3, Ollama 2, LM Studio 0. So where does Kimi K3 clearly win? Peak coding intelligence, 88.3% on Terminal Bench, 93.4% on SWE Bench verified, number 1 on Program Bench. A 1M token context window with flat pricing. And on an optimized stack like Modal, you're getting 460 tokens per second with a 0.30 cached input rate that makes heavy coding workloads genuinely affordable. And where does Ollama clearly win? It's free and unlimited if you run locally. It works completely offline with no data leaving your machine. It runs on consumer hardware, ranging from a Mac Mini up to a gaming PC. And its ecosystem of over 40,000 community integrations means you can swap in any model you want, including Kimi K3's weights if you ever get the hardware for it. Now, LM Studio's lane is narrower, but real. It's the easiest way to get a local model running on a desktop with a polished GUI, no terminal required, and it's free with no cloud subscription, which makes it the right pick if you want the simplicity of a desktop app and don't need Ollama's massive ecosystem or Kimi K3's frontier performance. If you need frontier coding intelligence and a 1M token context window, pick Kimi K3 and budget for the tokens. If you need privacy, offline capability, and zero cost, Ollama wins this comparison 3-2, and it's not going to cost you $1. LM Studio is the right call if you just want the simplest possible local desktop setup with no command line. One thing the docs don't spell out, Ollama's default context length is only 4K tokens unless you manually set the num-tx parameter, and most people never do. So they're running a 256K capable model at 4K and wondering why it forgets context mid-conversation. Set num-tx explicitly in your model file and you'll unlock the full window your hardware can actually support. If you want to see how Kimi K3 holds up against other frontier models on raw reasoning, I ran that exact matchup and it's a closer fight than you'd think. So go check out Kimi K3 versus Claude Opus 5 versus GPT 5.6 Soul and see where the coding edge actually breaks down.